Hey you, yes you. The odds of you not being subscribed to the channel are very high, so if you haven't already, it would mean the world if you'd subscribe if you're new and join the Woods crew to help me go full time. Hope you all enjoy this one. Woods out. Well, there are a few firsts in this afternoon to say the least. I usually never upload twice a day, and MVP caliber players usually don't get traded, period. But here we are, my second video of the day, and my man James Harden just got traded to the Brooklyn Nets. I'm not usually one to blow things out of proportion, but this is insane. And what makes it even crazier is the fact that the Rockets and Nets got the Cavaliers involved, and then the Rockets got the Pacers involved, which sent Victor Oladipo to the Rockets and made them contenders as well. This is by far one of the biggest trades we've seen in a minute. So let's just get right into what it tells us and the teams surrounding it. If you guys didn't see it yet, Woj just dropped a tweet this afternoon with a package revolving around the Nets, Rockets, and Cavs. Basically, the Nets are getting James Harden, the Rockets are getting a monumental haul of 4 first-round picks, 4 pick swaps, Caris LeVert, Dante Exum, and Royden Kirkus. The Cavs are getting Jared Allen and Taurean Prince, and the Rockets proceeded to trade Caris LeVert to the Pacers for Victor Oladipo. I know, a lot to take in to say the least, so let's just dive into how this affects each team, but mostly the Nets because they were the ones that got the MVP Harden. But before we get into this huge trade, it would be absolutely clutch if you left a like down below because it helps the channel grow in a big way, and I put all my priorities aside this afternoon to make this banger, so if all you guys just left a like, it would make it so worth my while and even help me go full time. Now I know that many of you guys are going to think this was a great trade for the Nets, and many of you guys are going to think it's a terrible trade for the Nets, but let me just say it's okay to disagree with me. And in fact, I'd like to hear your guys' takes on this trade below, so go ahead and drop a comment down below after you hear me out. Also, as I'm recording this trade literally went down 10 minutes ago, so this is just my initial reaction on it, and I will probably be making another video after it sinks in, so subscribe if you're new and join the Woods crew so you don't miss out on that video. But the fact is, I honestly can't say if this was a good trade for the Nets at the moment, but I can't say it was bad either, so I just figured I'd talk about all the positives and negatives of this trade going down for the Nets and how it could impact them. It's no secret that the Nets front office is dedicated to winning now even before this move went down, but this is just the cherry on top honestly. The Nets just gave up their whole future to get James Harden, which don't get me wrong, will not be a bad move if they win a chip this year, but the fact is if the Nets get anything short of a championship this year, it will be the biggest bust of all time, no questions asked. Of course, given none of their stars get injured this season. But I respect the Nets for this power move, because will any of these picks or pick swaps turn into anything close to the level of James Harden? Probably not. And the fact is, if KD and Kyrie and Harden stay with the Nets for the next 4 seasons, all of those picks will be at the bottom of the first round, because you best believe this team will dominate for years to come. That is, if they can put their issues aside and accept the role they have to play in to win. Because although this is undoubtedly the most dominant trio we have ever seen in the NBA, yeah, I said it, ever, they are also undoubtedly one of the most unstable ones as well. I mean, just look at the 2 main figures who have been in the center of all the media since this season began for their questionable actions, James Harden and Kyrie Irving. And let's not forget the fact that earlier in this year, Kyrie Irving said that he didn't even want the Nets to trade for James Harden. So honestly, at this point, the biggest question for the Nets is not on the court, but it's off of it. I mean, we don't even know where Kyrie is right now because he is out for personal reasons, and James Harden looked like this before his game yesterday. To say the least, there is definitely a world in which this trade backfires for the Nets big time. But let's face it, James Harden is James Harden, and people tend to forget that he is an MVP caliber player and one of the best NBA scorers of all time. Pairing that with 2 of the best players at their position in the league in Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving would just be flat out unstoppable. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see this new trio on the court before we can dive too deep into that. Now it also does hurt that the Nets had to part with Caris LeVert and Jared Allen because they were flat out balling off of the Nets bench. But again, James Harden is James Harden. I do believe that LeVert could become a superstar in this league though. I mean, just watching this man come off the bench and get buckets at will was just special for the Nets. But honestly, now that I'm collecting my thoughts, I do think that the Nets made the right choice for this one. Let's face it, NBA teams nowadays do not need depth like LeVert and Allen to win games and championships. We just saw the Lakers win a chip with the super shallow roster against one of the deepest rosters in the league, the Miami Heat. You need stars to win championships now, and the Nets have just that, even before the Harden trade. But now, the starting 5 of the Nets will potentially be Kyrie Irving, James Harden, Joe Harris, KD, and Jeff Green or DeAndre Jordan. And this is just scary for the NBA because of the fact that 4 out of these 5 players can knock down the 3 ball at will. And when there are that many players like that on the court at the same time, you will not be able to run a zone and keep up with them, which means that the big 3 of shot creators will be able to take a 1v1 matchup they like and take advantage of it for easy buckets all game long, which is what makes this team so scary for the NBA. Honestly, at this point for the Nets, I only have 2 concerns, and neither of them even involve the roster that they have now. One of them being the locker room issue like I discussed, and the other one being the shape that James Harden is in. I mean, come on guys, don't tell me when you saw that video of Harden last night you thought it was real. I literally had to double take and I was so shocked that it was real, because Harden looks so out of shape that he shouldn't even be playing. But the fact is, while on the Rockets, James Harden didn't even want to play, so it's safe to say that he was not very motivated to train, which is why we saw him going on his little adventures that he did. But now, James Harden has the best chance to win a championship that he's had his whole career, so you better believe that he will be getting in perfect shape to help the Nets make the championship push they are hoping for. But aside from the trade itself, I think there are a few things that we learned today that were pretty interesting to say the least. I'm not sure if you guys noticed, but a report came out saying that the Nets were willing to trade anything, literally anything for James Harden except for Kevin Durant, and only if Kevin Durant was okay with the trade. This just reassures us whose team this is, Kevin Durant's, not Kyrie Irving's. With all the headlines about Kyrie wanting this or Kyrie wanting that, it really made it seem like Kyrie was running the team, which would be very bad for Nets, because it's clear that Kyrie, well, I don't want to say anything too offending actually, so I'm just going to leave it at that. But the truth is, this is Kevin Durant's team, and what he says goes, which is very good for Nets fans to say the least. Another thing that also came out was the fact that the Nets were considering trading Kyrie Irving and keeping their deep roster instead of getting a trio of stars. Now, do I think that the Nets made the right decision? I honestly don't know yet, because it all depends on how their locker room situation goes. But the Nets obviously did ask Kevin Durant if he would be okay with them trading Kyrie, and KD obviously said no, which means that Kevin Durant definitely has some confidence that Kyrie's antics will not get in the way of his game and allow the Nets to win at the highest level no matter what he does off the court. I just think it's absolutely crazy that the Nets were willing to give up Irving like that if KD would have allowed it, because although he is a pain in the butt off the court, there's no denying that Kyrie Irving is just special on the court, and there is really no one like him. But aside from the things that we learned on the Nets side of things, there were even more interesting things that were leaked. The main one of those things being that the Philadelphia 76ers tried to trade for Harden today as well, with a package revolving around Ben Simmons, which is very interesting to say the least. I believe what this tells us is that the 76ers do not think what they have is enough to win a chip, and we could maybe even see them trading for a different star guard to put them even further in contention. But I'm just going to leave it at that, because we will talk about that in a video very soon. So just subscribe if you're new and join the Woods crew so you don't miss it. Honestly, I think at this point I'm going to save the Rockets side of this trade for the next video, because I want to take a deep dive on them just like I did with the Nets. So just stay tuned for that one, because it's going to be a banger. To say the least, it will be very interesting to see how this trio in Brooklyn does, because I don't even know if we have ever seen 3 players of this caliber on the same team in their primes, even though they're in their late primes. Well, besides the other trio that KD was part of on the Warriors. But I definitely believe that this trio blows the LeBron Miami Heat one out of the water, but let me know what you think on this one below. If James Harden and Kyrie can put their issues aside and just put their mind towards the games, they will be in the finals with the trophy in their hand by the end of the season, no doubt in my mind. And even if they don't get along, I think they could still win it all. But I guess all we can do is sit back and watch this Nets team ball out. Thank you so much for tuning in. I normally do not talk this fast, but this was a huge trade, so I couldn't even contain myself. If you did enjoy, it would be literally clutch if you could subscribe if you're new and join the Woods crew, as well as leaving a like below. That is legitimately all it takes for me to go full time. But regardless, I appreciate all you guys still watching. I'll catch you all in the next one. Woods out.